great. Don't have my gavel, but I might something equally useful. Could we have quiet in the hall, please? Could we have some quiet? Hello, everybody. Grab a seat if you can. If you haven't had a chance to eat yet, there are all sorts of tremendous goodies. Please come up and help yourselves. Thanks, by the way, to the whole committee and all the their entourages who brought this great food for tonight. It's wonderful. Welcome to the Framingham Democratic Town Committee holiday party. The, how many annual parties has it been? 110. 110 here. I was not at the first one. Beverly was. We're going to take the gavel away. You're much more brave than I am. Yeah, Mike knows not to go there. So, but thanks so much. This is a great time. It's been a very exciting year, a tremendously dramatic year electorally. All sorts of exciting and interesting things happening. Not everything went the way we wanted it to, but I will say here in Framingham and on election day, Framingham stayed true blue. Yay! Thanks to all you blue voters and all you door knockers and all you people who sent out those cards and letters. It was just a spectacular effort, and we certainly appreciate it here in Framingham. Surrounded by a sea of red, but we'll grab those red towns over the next couple of years and turn them blue again too. So anyway, thanks again. We have some special guests here tonight. One person who I think I'd love to ask the individual to say a few words. Someone who was our standard bearer, who stood up to the powers that think they are, and wanted to bring progressive, thoughtful politics to the State House. Came so very, very close. Missed it by an inch, but our candidate, our standard bearer, Martha Coakley.
Thank you, and I came to say thank you, because for a tough race for when we fought through the primary, we had, and I have said this by the way, we had a great primary, we had great primary candidates, any one of whom I still believe would have been a better governor than our pending governor, but you know, elections have consequences, but I was so proud to be the nominee, and I and my husband, and I know so many of you work every single day, knocking on doors, calling folks. We came very close. We got very much outspent, as you know. But I have to say it was not because of grassroots efforts, it was not because of particularly Framingham and Natick, our city and town committees that worked incredibly hard. And I saw that, and it means a lot to me, but it means a lot to the party. So I'm here mostly to say thank you, but equally importantly to say this battle has just begun in terms of where Massachusetts is going and what we need to do to hold a governor accountable who ran as a moderate, independent, with all his Democratic support. Well, let's hold him accountable for that. Absolutely. When it comes to issues around mental health and income inequality, fairness for women, for people who need inclusion in the state system, the things that not only did I know before I ran the race, that I saw as I ran. And I was so, so honored to be able to meet with businesses and people and folks all over the state. I'll just tell you two quick stories because I have a lot, and as I've called people and as I've heard from them since then, people paid attention to this race. Maybe not as many as we wanted came out to vote, but I know my husband and I were shopping, we went grocery shopping right after I conceded because we didn't have anything in the house. And I couldn't get out of the deli counter. People I didn't even know were hugging me and coming up and saying, thank you for running. And this was in Burlington, you know, which is independent sort of South Brown country. But I would do it again, run that race, because it's so important that we have good standard bearers. And I'm looking at Jamie Eldridge who's here, and Chris Walsh who's here, Tom Santacandrew who represents you. People who care about, you know, what the future of Massachusetts is going to be, in particular for people who don't always have a voice. And that's what we stand for and what we're going to continue to stand for. Before the election, this is one of my stories. There's a young man who came up to me and he said, you know, I wanted to let you know that I testified before you on the bullying bill. He was a student at Littleton High School, and he said, I came and testified about what it meant to be a gay student in a public school. And I was so impressed that the bill got passed. He said, I ran for school committee and won. And I thought, you know what? This is democracy in action. So I was really proud. And watch for him, because he'll be someone. But the impact, I think, of what we all have on young people particularly, on running, getting in a race. And as I said, look, you cannot win if you don't run. And there are no silver medals in politics, right? There's no, if you come in second, you've lost. And I think it's just so important for all of us, and it will be for me to say to of our young folks, get in the race, get in the race. You know, if you don't win, try again. But stay engaged, as I hope to, on those important issues. The other story I just want to say is that you would not believe, or maybe you would, how many people have come up to me during the race and since and said, thank you for raising the issue of mental health. That issue that is behind so much of what we need to address, substance abuse, our prison population, people who are homeless, people who are addicted, and people, particularly young kids, who if we're able to identify and help them sooner, would have a much better chance at being productive citizens and have happy lives. So that is one issue that I care about, that I know we can do better in Massachusetts, and it's only one of many. But I know that you will all stay engaged, and I hope that as we move forward, we continue to, if we don't have an election right in front of us, let's stay engaged in those issues and not wait for the next cycle of elections, 2016 or 2018, but continue to do the kind of grassroots outreach so that our voices through your elected representatives and through your city and town committees will be heard on about what we care about here in Massachusetts. I wish everybody a very safe, happy holiday season. David?
Yeah, Madam General, I want to just take a word if I could, because one of the things we forgot during the race was what an extraordinary job you did as Attorney General for all of the years in which you represented the Congress.
I am proud of that work, and I am proud of the work we did standing up to Wall Street, keeping people in their homes, challenging Defense of Marriage Act, being the people's lawyer. And I am equally proud, and you are so wonderfully lucky, and I know you worked hard for it, to have Maura Healey as your next attorney.
That's right.
She will be fabulous. So, I just came from my last meeting with my fellow AGs from around the country, and if you followed it at all, you'll see even for attorneys general, there's a huge division between Democratic AGs and Republican AGs. Look at the New York Times today. We lost a lot of governors' races, Democrats. We lost a lot of AGs' races, Democrats. So it is a good time to do some soul searching around how we continue to be heard, represented, because in the end, you do have to win to be able to have the impact that you want. We are lucky here in Massachusetts, obviously, that Speaker DeLeo and the Senate President. We've got our Secretary of State, Bill Galvin, who's going to continue to, stand up for folks and do a great job as Secretary of State. Our Governor's Council is here. We are lucky to have the representation and the thoughtfulness in Massachusetts that other states don't have, and I say that knowing what other states are dealing with. But, as those numbers of Democrats go down and the number of independents go up, it means that organization, being able to focus, getting turnout, getting ways in which, and I throw this out, do we need to move the primary up so that we don't have, we're always going to have a lot of Democrats running for these offices. I haven't talked about the Secretary of State now, he's probably not in favor of that. And I didn't do that to put you on the spot, Bill. But all of these issues about how we will continue to, and I'm a big believer in party, right? You need to be organized in a party to be able to move an agenda. If we are not able to continue to do that, then we won't. But I really want to say thank you. I know how hard folks worked. I know the couples that were bruised. We have a lot of Purple Hearts. As Kid Kate, you know, she was using her scooter to go door to door and fell off. As you may notice, this is post-election. I wish I had a better story, but I just tripped over the dog gate and had a fight with my kitchen floor on the floor one. But we,
Too much canvassing.
anyway, but thank you, and I'm not going anywhere, so I'm gonna stay in touch, and I really appreciate all of your friendship, and we're old friends. Some are very old friends. Not that old. I just know you for a long time, right? Old friends and newer friends, and thanks for all you do on behalf of your city and town committees, your neighborhoods. This is what we have to do. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Martha had a very important point, is that money had a big influence in this past election. Wall Street, the big tax, the Koch brothers, all of those folks contributing over $12 million to Charlie Baker. Stop and think what that has all meant to us. But how do you counter that? You have grassroots, you have activity. Great to see some new young faces here tonight. Bring some other new young faces with you too. These old faces, well, sooner or later, you know, we can't be here forever. So come on in, take over. Except for Kathy, she'll be here. But thanks so much, Martha, for all that you did for us. Secretary Bill Galvin, would you like to say a few words? Bill?
Thank you very much, Jerry. My words are going to be very few. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for all your support over the past year. With the last recount, which we just finished the other day, the election is over. But I do think it's good to reflect on some of the things that happened as the Attorney General was getting into some of the details of her race. Clearly, turnout was a problem. We had a lower turnout, less than 2.2 million than we've had going back to 1998. So that was a real concern, and what's the worst part of it was that the turnout was even worse in some of our really strong Democratic areas where there were no local contests. For instance, New Bedford was down 22% from its turnout in 2010. Fall River was down, the Berkshires were down. Everywhere was down, but some places were down even more dramatically. And I think that definitely hurt as our efforts went forward. I gather there was some conversation about money, and I think that really has to be the first conversation, because without a doubt, when we saw the money that's been spent to attack our candidates, it's been abused in many ways. I mean, it's bad enough we had to suffer through New Hampshire. I've learned more about New Hampshire than I ever want to know. But on top of it all, we see that there was money spent not just on statewide candidates. As I'm sure many of you know, there was a very organized effort to attack some of our legislative candidates with special interest money. Your near neighbors here, the Marlborough Republican City Committee, I say it's the Cayman Islands of political committees. Basically, it's where all the dirty money flows through, but nevertheless, it's certainly been spent. So I think we have to look really hard at some of our campaign finance laws and make sure that even though we're limited by what we can do by some of the United States Supreme Court decisions, minimally we have to get more transparency into where these monies are coming from. And certainly when we're talking about the activities of political committees, local committees well outside of the area, that has to be something we can look at. And anything we can do, we should do. That's not to say we don't have the obligation to raise money, and we should raise money and do all the things we have to do. But without a doubt, without addressing that issue, that is their advantage. They don't have grassroots. They don't have indigenous support amongst our people. What they do have is the ability to bring in large amounts of money to try to influence the discussion and debate, and that's really something that we have to look at. I think that there are lessons to be learned, but there are also opportunities to be had, and I feel that Martha ran a great campaign. When you consider all the money that was spent against her, when you, again, look at all of the problems that we confronted, and you look at those numbers, and I look at those numbers very, very carefully, she won some tough places. For instance, she won Lowell, which is, you know, a tough place for a Democrat running for governor to win. So she did very well. 40,000 votes is a high It's really 20,000 people voting the other way. And the saddest part, I don't think I'm saying anything that's inappropriate, but too many Democrats supported Charlie Baker. That's a fact. And they didn't do it because of ideology. They did it because of their opportunists. And I think going forward, we have to make sure we keep track of that, because it's not right. And if people want to be something other than Democrats, well, then they shouldn't run as Democrats. It's that simple. And so that's... I'm going too far. It's a Christmas party. I don't want to say something nasty. So I just have to say, I hope you all have a great holiday and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Councilor Jubenville, want to say hello? Or you? You? Good to see you, Bob.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I love being in Framingham. I wore my Christmas bow tie. And I want to thank you all for the support you've given me over the years. I love being on the Governor's Council, and we are pleased to have for the first time in, I think, 18 years, 4 pardons and a commutation. It's coming before us. So we'll see what happens with them. They're not all that great, to be honest. But we'll see. Well, it's interesting. I got a call from a reporter about that, and I guess he filed his pardon request on December 1st. I think there's about 200 before him in line, so I don't think he's going to make it for this governor, but pardons, the applications continue over to the next governor. So we may see him after the first of the year, but you know, I don't think he should jump the line. We'll see. We'll probably have some movie stars coming in to testify. Yeah. So give me your autograph books.
Televise the hearings.
Yeah, well, that's what we've been trying to do, but there's been some opposition to that, so we'll see what happens. But again, thank you so much for supporting me. I love being your governor's counselor. I love working with your Metro West delegation. I see the great rep here, Chris, Senator Eldridge, and everybody else, Karen and Tom and the whole group. So thank you very much. If you need anything at the Governor's Council, please call. I will return your call and we'll do what we can for you. Thank you.
4 more years! Great, thanks. Senator Jamie Eldridge would like to say a couple words. Thank you so much for joining us. Senator Karen Spilker, as you know, couldn't be here tonight, but we were so delighted that she was returned to continue to represent us. Next door neighbor, Senator Jamie Eldridge, is again a tremendous progressive voice up at the stairs. We're so delighted that you're able to join us tonight. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. So thanks very much for having me, and I'll be brief as well. And of course, the district I represent west of here was a district that went almost entirely red. So I think, like was discussed earlier, there's a lot of soul searching going on about why that's happening, especially in sort of less well-off or struggling communities. But I just want to say that it is a bittersweet moment because in the legislature, one of the things I hope people have a sense of, and this is something I'm a pretty strong activist of within the Senate and working closely on the House side, is electing more Democrats who are Democrats, who believe in strong democratic values. And in the House and Senate, we did elect more progressive Democrats across the board, and so that's very encouraging. We would have loved to partner with Martha Coakley in the governor's office, and so I think that's going to create a unique challenge. I think with that in mind, it's an opportunity for the Democratic Party and for Democratic legislators and other constitutional officers to crystallize what it really means to be a Democrat. And I completely agree with Secretary Galvin, is that I think there's more to be done on campaign finance reform. One of the things that Martha didn't talk about that she was a tremendous leader on is Martha was one of the first attorneys general to come out against the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court in 2010. Played a really critical role in moving the legislature to pass the resolution. I know the Framingham Democratic Town Committee was one of the first towns in the state pass that resolution, as well as the Board of Selectmen, so I want to thank you for that. And on that front, I do want to let you know, and probably a lot of people here are familiar with the organization Move to Amend, but they're putting forth another resolution that I'm proud to be the lead Senate sponsor of, and Representative Corey Atkins from Concord will be the House sponsor of, to not just focus on campaign finance in terms of how the Supreme Court has defined rights as applying to corporations, but all of the rights expounded in the Bill of Rights that they should not apply to corporations, so it's a little bit more of a bold, sweeping resolution, and so this is something that's a nationwide effort, and I'm hoping Massachusetts will be one of the first to pass this in the legislature. So that's something that I think we're very committed to. On the sort of substance abuse, mental illness front, I think there's a lot more room for progress, and I do just want to highlight someone that I've known for many years, and it was a challenging primary race, but I did want to recognize Carmen Gentile, who's newly elected as and it's a tough race because I do want to recognize Brian LaForda, who ran a very strong race. For Carmen and I, just 3 weeks ago, were at the Mass Care event in Boston to talk about single-payer health care. And I'm personally someone that believes that if we're really serious about making sure that everybody has access to mental health care, that substance abuse is properly taken care of in every single community, we seriously have to change the way that healthcare is delivered in the state. And so Carmen is a strong supporter of single-payer healthcare. I'll be refiling that bill. And that's something that we're thinking about trying to do statewide hearings around to sort of organize what are the problems with our healthcare system and what are the solutions, which I would submit one of them is single payer. And then I just want to close and say that I think particularly in the Senate, and this is something I've done a lot of work on, is that we have a very strong progressive caucus. We have, for the first time since Tom Birmingham, a liberal Senate president coming in, and that's very, very exciting about the opportunities that's going to happen, not just on the policy front, but I think making the process more transparent. And one of Senator Rosenberg's top priorities as the next Senate president is going to be inequality. And now everybody says that inequality is the top concern of theirs. How do we change inequality in Massachusetts? And Massachusetts is probably around about the 8th most unequal state in the country in terms of the gap of income between those who are less well off and those who are doing well. So what are the different approaches we can take to address inequality? So I'm not going to propose any solutions tonight. I think I'm just going to ask if people have ideas in that. I think that's going to be one of the key themes of the Senate. And I just want to close because he's a close friend of mine and someone I also went to law school with, but I will say it is sad that one of my colleagues will not be Dylan Hare, and I just want to recognize Dylan for his campaign. What Martha Copley said is absolutely right, is that, you know, whether we're winning or losing battles, the fight has a value in moving forward the progressive movement. And so I want to commend Dylan for running against an incumbent, which is very, very difficult. And Dylan, I hope that you run again, and I just want to thank you for your efforts, everybody's efforts here to move forward the Democratic Party and democratic values this year. Thanks very much for having me.
Rep. Chris Walsh.
So I've said so before, I know you know this, it bears repeating that I am honored to be your representative. I really, truly am. What a great group of people. A couple things. One, there are a couple other people here. There's Kate Moore in the back. Ray Blackman from the Congressman's campaign. Selectman Cheryl. The Framingham Library Committee is well represented here. We have and a bunch of other people. So,
Chris, you're going to get in trouble.
I'm going to. I started to think if I.
You're going to miss
somebody.
Even your comments tonight, I'm safe. I'm like,
there are a couple issues. One of the big ones, I had an opportunity today to sit down with some files that were in my father's file cabinet, because I have been, this is not, but that's my family ringtone. Just that gives you a sense for what my family's like. But I sit down with these files, and my grandfather was from Boston, went to Boston Latin, went to the Naval Academy, actually was at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed. And he was the Commodore of the destroyer squadron that day. And actually, I got a big fat file of his today that I was reading through, and it had his notes and the notes of all his officers, his flagship and two other of his ships were sunk. And so it was very interesting reading that I happened to be reading today on December 7th. And I was thinking that, you know, it's one of those things. There was Pearl Harbor, and then we've had in our lifetime 9/11. And we owe a huge debt of gratitude to the people who have sort of responded to these world events, which seem to be one unending world event when you look at it in a certain way. But the point I want to make is that in doing so, we should not do so at the cost of our liberties and the liberties of the people. We have seen this last month a lot of really tragic things happen. The idea of us sliding into a situation where the police feel that they're different from everybody else is abhorrent to me. And I think that one of the things we really have to do some soul searching here, and I think a lot of people are, is in really how we look at the world and how we look at what our security really means. So that's something going into the new year I think we have to really pay attention to. It's not just equality for some, it really has to be equality for all. So having said that, I am really excited about this next session, working with Jamie, working with Tom, working with Carmen. I think we have a lot of good work we can do. I'm really thrilled to do it. I do think there are some big forces ahead. One of the things this last election got me thinking about was the fact that there was a third-party candidate in Evan Falchuk, actually, that got 3% of the vote. Those were people, if you look at who they are, ought to be Democrats. And those were people who actually would not have come out and voted except for the fact that Evan was there. And I think we deserve looking at that dynamic very hard and deciding why those people, with all of the things that we are trying to do for society, why those people aren't excited. So that's something I think we all can sort of dig into this time around. So having said that, and I think Bill said it rightly, this is a Christmas party, or a holiday party, and I wish you all a really, really good holiday. So, thank you.
And the newest addition to Framingham's electoral clout at the State House, Carmen, are you still here?
Yes.
Carmen Gentile, come on up. Representative-elect, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Glad to be with you tonight. Looking forward to a very good session. You've got a great delegation of Chris Walsh has been very welcoming to me, Tom Sanacandro, and Jamie. I go back many, many years. Look forward to moving ahead in education and healthcare, the environment, and welcome. I represent Precinct 3, but I've been in Framingham for 30 years. For 30 years I've been here. Always, well, downtown for a good portion of that. I was over the center for a while. I've worked here for 30 years steady. I know the town. I love the town. and I'm so happy, I'm honored to represent you. And I look forward to working with you all. And with that, I have to run off to a third party.
So we have some former elected officials here, some good friends of ours, Senator David Magnani. Representative John Stefanini. Not too far away, Representative John Bussinger. We have some great Democrats running for local office too. In March, we'll be having a forum for Democrats who are running for townwide office. Other candidates will be invited as well, but Democrats, of course, will be able to speak at that. First, we have Beverly Hugo, candidate for school committee. Beverly's doing a super knockout job as chair of the committee. Thank you for that. And we also have, he had to leave but was here and brought a gigantic tray of cookies with Jason Smith, who's running for re-election for selectman. Thanks, Jason. We have Stephanie Mercandetti on the planning board running for re-election. We have Tom Mahoney, who could not be here, running for re-election to the planning board. There's another candidate.
And they have their papers here for Framingham residents to sign.
Papers are on the desk too, if people want to sign in. Nancy Cole-Wallace. Not this year, Ruth. Ruth is safe for another couple of years. Thank you for joining us. Any other local candidates? Jim Kelly, candidate for school committee. Could you wave to people? There are 2 open seats. So,
No, he's running for the other one.
so for those who haven't met Jim, raise your hand again if people want to say hello on their way up. Oh, Cheryl Tully-Stoll. You're not running for re-election, but you can say hello anyway.
Yes.
And I know he was recognized also by Wade Blackman from Congresswoman Clark Sullivan. Yesterday, Catherine Clark and I and Wade and Beverly and Mike Hugo and a couple of folks went to Framingham Baking. We heard the history. We saw the old bread kneading machines. 1917. It was a great day. Catherine Clark spent a lot of time in Framingham. It was great to see her. Thanks, Wade, for helping get her here.